Good morning, everyone. My name is Jocelyn Conley, pelvic floor physical therapist, founder of the Vagina Doc. And this morning, I wanted to talk about, or I wanted to answer your burning questions about pelvic floor mobility and working out. You know, even though it's interesting when I look back on my past and how I got here, I can't even believe how much the pelvic floor just bled into my athletic career and into my life. And I wonder if I could go back, which I wouldn't go back, if I could go back and apply what I know now to myself as a teenager, how different my life would be. Would I even pay attention? So these questions that I'm answering are questions that I started to have whenever I just heard about the pelvic floor, and these are questions that I get from my clients and my patients all the time. So if you're on here on the live, comment live. If you're here on the replay, comment replay. And at the end of this talk, which I'm only going to go to about 10 till 8 because I have work today, I'm going to make an announcement about something that I'm going to have available, challenge format for members of the group. So you might want to stick to the end. So question number 1, and if you are on and you have a specific question, put it in the comments. If I don't get to it today, I'll answer it later or another day. And then, of course, comment live if you're on live, comment replay if you catch the replay. All right, let's get into it. Question number 1. I never had kids. Should I know about my pelvic floor? I kind of just already got into this. So myself, I've never had kids. But as a young athlete, I had issues. Horrible periods, a lot of pain, like bladder infections, like UTIs when I wasn't even sexually active, but I was never tested. So who knows if they were actually UTIs. So that was the first run in, like, what if I knew, or what if something I knew about the pelvic floor then, I wouldn't have thought I was such a weak athlete. How would I approach core strengthening differently? So now, or last year, I was getting treated for prolapse symptoms, vaginal heaviness, pressure, issues with my emptying my bladder and fully having a bowel movement. And once I got treated, I knew all along in PT school, once I was being educated about the pelvic floor, how much the abdominals impact the pelvic floor and how much breathing impacts the pelvic floor. I think I would approach things a little bit differently, maybe, if I would have known. And then I wouldn't have, I never had kids, but I do have a history of painful intercourse. And I was very lonely at the time and felt like I was the only one. I was weird. There was something wrong with me. And so if I knew how much the pelvic floor could impact this stuff, and then I wasn't crazy, I just wonder how it would be. So to answer the question, I never had kids. Should I know about the pelvic floor? Yes. The pelvic floor impacts everyday life because of how it's part of our, keep our spine upright. You could walk because you have this deep system that keeps your spine upright and protected from the world and allows you to move. So yes, you need to know about your pelvic floor. If you want to be intimate with yourself or a partner, you got to know about to enhance that part of you should know about the pelvic floor. And it's also really important for like every organ function. Question number 2. I have had 3 kids. I know nothing about my pelvic floor except that it's probably weak. Where do I even start? I had another question that was, what do I do if I don't know if my pelvic floor is weak? So I'm going to kind of answer both of those together. First thing you need to do is be curious about the question or ask your best questions. And to know what questions to ask, you have to learn a little bit more about what it even is. So for me, I am in a business marketing challenge, and some things like I don't know anything about, let's say, I didn't know anything about acquiring customers and acquiring leads and converting them to customers. So before I even asked questions about something that I was working on, I kind of had to learn a little bit more. So you need to learn a little bit more about the pelvic floor, and you do that by educating yourself by reputable sources, not just Googling pelvic floor and reading off a WebMD or something, because they give you a really narrow view of it. It's getting better, but it's still not enough. You're on the Facebook group, so look in the search bar or go into the videos tab to see what's on there, and then reach out to me and follow me on Instagram, go onto my website. There are resources there. The second thing you can do is just talk to an expert. Some experts offer free consults, initial consults. I know there's 2 ways to work with me free for the first time besides the Facebook group, and that is a video consult of you answering questions, and then I answer those questions. I send a video of myself answering your questions. And then the second way is you filming yourself answering a questionnaire, filming yourself doing movements, and then I give you a professional opinion and where you should go from there after that. And then the third thing you can do is taking an online course. So there's a lot of those available. I know myself have online courses, and it's just a way to learn what they should have taught us when we were younger but didn't. And then of course seeing someone. Now the problem is with seeing someone is a lot of insurance companies don't recognize pelvic floor or preventative care as something to cover. Speaking from a provider standpoint, you can get around the system by documenting in such a way that reflects medical necessity. Speaking from my experience, that's why I got out of insurance-based care. It was just too much of unpaid time on myself, and it was less treating the patient. It was more trying to appease an insurance company. It was really, really challenging, and it drained me, and so it impacted my overall care because I was burned out. So educate yourself, get a consult, take a course, get seen by a professional, and that's where you start. What do I do if I don't know if my pelvic floor is weak? Okay, so this is the second part of this question. You have to pay attention to your day-to-day routine. Once you know a little bit about the pelvic floor, you can say, oh, it pertains to toileting, it pertains to sex, it pertains to my athletic performance, or me working out, it pertains to pain problems. So if you find after learning a little bit more about the pelvic floor, oh, I do have issues with fully emptying my bladder and I have to push, or I do have issues with stopping gas in an elevator or wherever, or I do have issues with seemingly change in orgasm, or I do have issues with I do have pain with sex, or I do have back pain after working out or during working out, or kind of all the time, or I don't know, I can't stop the flow of urine. Not that I'm telling you to do that as an exercise. That's a quick, if I'm peeing and I don't know if I know what my pelvic floor is, or if my patient doesn't know, I'm like, can you stop the flow of urine without squeezing your butt cheeks? It's just a quick thing to check. That could be, if you're leaking during times, that's potentially an indicator. Weak is a general term. I like to say, maybe don't worry. Well, just open your ears. Don't just coast throughout the day, and pay attention if there's little whispers from your body saying, hey, pay attention to me. We like to forget. We like to numb it out because that's our human nature, to numb it out so we stay protected. But in reality, that's doing the opposite. Okay, question 3. Should I do Kegels while I run in order to not pee my pants? So I had a patient that did just this, and every time she started Kegels, she leaked even more. The problem here is your pelvic floor is already is not, it's like have you ever tried to, it's like you're trying to use a program on a Mac, but it's for a Windows. That wasn't a good example. But when you go to, or yeah, gosh, I don't know why I can't think of get this example, but when you're running and you voluntarily tighten your pelvic floor and to stop leaking, well, your pelvic floor is either already tired and gassed, too tired to function properly, or it's at the point where that's the example. You're trying to use a Microsoft app on a Mac or vice versa, or it's uncoordinated. So trying to use it is not the solution. So, no, you shouldn't. More than likely, unless you're in your early training phase, early, like you're in the rehab, you're transitioning, you're still in rehab, and you're trying to get your pelvic floor to tolerate the impact. But speaking from, expert opinion here, I do not have my patients or clients Kegel when they run. We prepare the pelvic floor for impact, but this looks very different than Kegeling during an actual run, or Kegel, whatever you want to call it, pelvic floor contraction. Number 4, is it safe to squat if my pelvic floor is weak? Again, the weak term is a familiar term, but sometimes, like, weak is a very broad example, but just if it's not performing properly. And that's a great question. So I had a patient and she was afraid to squat. And so she stopped squatting. This person was super active. It made me so sad hearing her story. And she got really, she did get weak kind of everywhere, because squatting is really great to just strengthen your whole body in addition to your core, depending on how you use your squat. And so let me just put it this way. And ask you questions. Are you sitting down in a chair? Are you getting in and out of your car? Are you sitting down on a toilet? Are you getting up and down from the floor? Are you picking stuff up off the floor? If you said yes to any of those, yes, you should still squat. Now, there's ways to go about it, and everyone is going to be different. But speaking from example, one mistake I make is this, assuming an athlete knows how to squat. Learn how to squat differently, and learn how to squat where you feel confident and you're not symptomatic at an intensity that you can handle and breathe. That might be sit to stand from a chair. It might be holding on to something. It might be that you're doing it in a position like hands and knees instead of standing. Is it the biggest thing that I see is people try to hit a home run before they even learn how to bat. And that's kind of like what happened there. So yes, you should still be squatting, but in the right environment, at the right intensity for you. What is pelvic floor mobility? Okay, so the definition of mobility is your ability to control the motion across the full length. So for a bicep curl, for example, if I show you my elbow, I have mobility of my elbow here. I have full range of motion, or this is my full range of motion, which is ideal, and I can control on the way up, and I'm not just letting it flop down. I can control it on the way down. So with the pelvic floor, mobility is the same thing. Your ability to control the whole contraction and your ability to control the whole relaxation. A lot of people, they'll contract and they plop, plop. It's like a splat. So it's not flexibility, though flexibility, like having the full length, is important. It's being able to control that. Mobility is king, not just for pelvic floor, but for everything. So here's a quick story. I had a patient. She jumped right into strengthening before dealing with some scar tissue and some pain and problems there. So went right into strengthening, didn't know how to control the lowering phase. And we got her back. It just took a little bit more, like I had to get her past her own head first. And then once she was able to get past that point, she adapted pretty quick, like 4 weeks. So it's not all is lost if you skip mobility and go into strength. In fact, sometimes that's appropriate depending on how you are, but that's not always the case. So mobility is king. Next one. Is it normal to feel like I have cramps after working out? Okay, so this is a great question. And I'm going to say, is it normal to do that, to have cramps after working out? And then also, is it normal to have cramps after sex? While this is common in a group, in certain people, it is not necessarily normal. So my first suggestion at this point is to see a gynecologist or specialist in this area, and also see a pelvic PT, because we have to sift out, is this a problem with your the mucosal tissue, the hormonal function, that kind of thing, like the uterine lining, cervix, just the irritability there? Or is it a pelvic floor irritability? So the pelvic floor irritability they can present similar, like your pelvic floor is angry. It's like you're punching here. And so if you punch here, you're not going to, that's your muscle. That's going to be, you're working with your physical therapist, versus if there isn't like an actual vein problem there, you wouldn't, I don't know what to do about a vein problem there necessarily, so you go see someone else. So you want to have a conversation with both of those types of providers, and it could be your muscles are like spasming or contracting or just need stretched, relaxation drills, or it could be, like I mentioned, an irritability in the lining, the cellular lining. So I would say first thing is to do some relaxation, deep breathing and stretching, and see how you respond with that. Okay, quick last subset of questions that I got on Instagram. This is in regards to a tighter pelvic floor. Before I go on to that, Leah says, few OBs recommend postpartum therapy unless you specifically ask for it. And who wants to admit you have a PT problem and you have so many concerns about your new baby? Leah, thank you for commenting that. I agree. And this is a problem. OBs, I had an OB that just said, or if you're not having any kids, just remove it, referring to the uterus. And I have a real problem with these people because they dismiss that worry in those women, because you do have all these other concerns. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, is to empower women to feel confident. And if you're in a state that is direct access, meaning you can just, like for Arizona, for example, you can just go to contact a pelvic floor PT and schedule with one. That's most states now in the U.S. I don't know how it is in other countries, but that is a way to get around that. That's unacceptable. So that's what I have to say about that. I'm fired up. Anyways, okay, really quick of these last subset of questions about tight pelvic floor. So first question is, should you consciously relax the pelvic floor with every exercise? It depends. So I have a group of people that early on, like recovery and like restoring and rebuilding those tissues, we've got to contract. Yeah, we've got to rehab. Just like if you've ever had a knee surgery, they have you doing those quad squeezes. You got to do this for the pelvic floor sometimes. But sometimes that isn't always the first thing you got to do. But sometimes no. Like if you tend to be overactive, no. But that depends. And then second question is, how do you tell if your pelvic floor is weak or tight or just tight? Well, there's two routes. You go see a professional that can give you, or a couple professionals to give you a couple opinions, or you can do it yourself. So stick to the end, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what I'm going to tell you about. My goal is that I want to help people get comfortable in their own body before they ever see me in person, because we waste too much time of them trying to get comfortable with me before they let me do an internal exam sometimes. So I want to give my patients or my potential clients control first by teaching them, providing education, tools to test themselves, make their own decisions about what's important, what's not important. And then when they're ready to say, hey, I have a problem, can you help me? That's when they go see someone. That's the most efficient. Unless it's, I mean, some people are ready and they're down. But other people don't even need to see a pelvic floor physical therapist if they just knew a little bit more about their body. Can I keep running while trying to relax my pelvic floor? Sure. Yes. Yes. My thoughts with this, though, are it's a mental training. It's just as much mental training as pelvic floor training. And learning what is your triggers of stress. What is taking up a lot of mental real estate here? And then we come up with a plan on getting you away from that. How are you going to approach your next run? Will I ever do a Kegel again? This is for pelvic floor tightness again. My answer to that is, why do you need to Kegel? Why do you want to? Do you need to? So figuring out if you need to, number one. Number two is figuring out why. Like, is it to enhance orgasm? Is it to strengthen? My saying is, you just gotta, it's a journey. Why wouldn't you? Your pelvic floor muscles, you have two types. You have ones that you have control over, and then you have, system that you don't have control over, and those should be working. I mean, if you ever have to poop and you're not near a toilet, but you don't poop your pants, there is some involuntary pelvic floor muscle contraction, aka Kegel, hate that term, but it is what it is. There is some of that going on. So my answer is yes. What do I do while driving? Focus on the road and don't focus on your pelvic floor. I cannot stand the recommendation is, do your Kegels when you're driving. I know you guys are busy, but breathe. Focus on your breathing when you're driving. There's so many nuts on the road. Focus on your breathing. And if you were specifically told that you have a underactive pelvic floor that needs strengthening, then you can maybe during your red lights. But even then, I don't think that's the greatest strategy, because you're not fully focused. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. If you have any other questions and you want to put them in the comments, I've been there. I've been in the position where I didn't want to ask questions. I didn't want to admit I had a problem. I was alone for a long time. And I get it. Like, even as a pelvic PT student, wasn't ready for pelvic PT. I wasn't ready to deal with it. I wasn't ready to talk. I mean, there were so many layers that I had to get through before I was ready to let someone in to help me. In fact, like the first time I saw a pelvic PT, I only saw her the one time. She changed my life and allowed me to get started to untangle the mess that I had felt. But I still wasn't ready to go see one. Like, when I went back to school and I could have had regular pelvic PT, like, I wasn't ready. I didn't, no matter what people told me, like, I acknowledged it and I was like, okay, I'll do it when I'm ready. And if I had the tools to wrap my brain around the things that would really push the needle forward in my confidence in my body, living in my body, my confidence in my interactions with intimacy, and then confidence of, or even just wrap my brain around that I'm not different or I'm not weird. There's nothing inherently wrong. This is just an area. Like, some people have issues with their feet. Mine was just my pelvic floor. Like, if I had those tools and just sprinkled, what can I do? What can I do before I'm ready? Who knows where I would be. So I find that this is really important. or this is really something that I care about and care about sharing with people. And as you guys know, I have a beta group that's testing some of my programs, and what I'm finding is it's a lot. Not even people are ready for that. So I am coming up with a very special challenge to basically empower women, moms or not, the basics of getting control of your pelvic floor. So you don't have to worry if you're doing this or that wrong, or you don't have to worry about if you're predisposing yourself to prolapse, or you don't have to be embarrassed for years about something that, you could just do a few things and then it improves. So it's a challenge that sprinkles on little things to just push the needle to really improve your workouts, or how you approach your workouts, how you think about your body, and how you make sense of all the craziness and untangle that craziness to find meaning in why you are experiencing what you're experiencing. So I've been working on this all summer, and I've just been like, oh my gosh, how do I get people open to this in a way they're ready to digest? And I had to think back, oh my gosh, Joss, it took you over many, many, many years, more than 4. So 4 took me to actually allow someone to even go down there. And then it took, after 2016, I just got a pelvic PT, and I was a regular patient in end of 2019. For 4 years, it took 8 years for me to commit. So you are not alone. I am an expert here, and I'm not even always comfortable. So if you're interested in that challenge, here's just a few little nuggets. I haven't launched it. I haven't really told many people about it. It's going to be 21 days. You're going to get a whole bunch of goodies that go along just with the challenge. It's going to have a little bit of exercise. It's going to have a little bit of teaching. It's going to have a little bit of extras that'll help, outside the challenge. And it's going to be just enough to give you to answer these questions, to at least, let's say if you do need to see a pelvic PT, if you do see a pelvic PT your first time, you are going to get so much more out of your PT, and your PT is going to love you, because you're going to be that much better at telling you about your problem and your goals and what you really want to achieve in your life. So I got to go. I thank you guys for coming on. If you are on and you didn't already put it, comment that you were live. If you are excited about the challenge and you're going to be part of it, put it down. Comment challenge. I'm thinking that I'm going to start telling you guys about it mid-month, and it's going to happen in August. Oh, I'm so excited. I am so freaking excited. It's been a challenge trying to get to oh my gosh, how am I going to get people to get to really transform in 21 days. And I had to just go through all the mess in the closet and go in my closet of all the struggles and the hardships and oh, it was hard, but man, it was great. So I'm excited. I know this will help you guys. So thank you guys for watching. I will be on Thursday to talk about some stretching things with the pelvic floor. If you like this, keep watching. I come on 7:30 a.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And if you want to watch it on YouTube, this is called Real Talk with the Vagina Doc. So until next time, see you guys.